Hello once again, everyone, and welcome back to talking about the H.A.W. scenarios. So now we are moving away from the guided scenarios into the open ones. So the open scenarios are meant to be a little more free form. By this time, you should get used to working with your team, etc. And so what we'll be doing is, rather than, hey, this is what you're doing, deal with it, this will be a little more of, here's the vague objective, accomplish it. This will give the lances more time to act independently. Certainly will give the commanders of each block a little more time to break things up and set their people. And really, that's kind of the biggest change is now you will get more of a say both on the ground and, from the further back perspective. So let's talk a little bit about what we're looking at here. So firstly, the barriers. We're going to take apart the bridge and we're going to set them out across the field. Now, we did this last year, and all it does is just add a little bit of alteration to the field. That could represent anything, and they're about waist high, so this group here in the front is showing how now when a lance is positioned by one, they can bring a lot more of their forces to bear, and they can do a lot more with it, so that really does allow a lance to stand a bit more on its own. So we've kind of seeded them. There's an even number of them here, so it's nice and straightforward. But both sides will be starting at good distance and will start relatively formed up and move from there. Now, this is where the commander and the banner carrier matter a little bit more. You may notice that our two commanders here have their visors up, and the reason for that is because we will appoint commanders who are expected to be the overall voice. We had this last year. It worked pretty well. And the whole point of this is to prevent things from descending into absolute chaos. Certainly, if you're on the front line, you may need to think at a lance level, but as far as the general strategy and, hey, I need you here, that's where the commander and the banner matters. This also means that if you are put into a commander role or you elect to be in one, you are allowed to have your visor up to better communicate, which also means that if the fight starts getting too close, you do have to withdraw, or if you choose to go into the fray, you're going to have your visor closed up. But I digress. Either way, though, this will be relatively straightforward. For the most part, it's going to end up turning into one of two things. Either it'll be relatively even, or perhaps one side or the other will fully seize the field, being able to use these front two barriers as kind of their new front line, and they will then hold that for a significant amount of time. In the open scenarios, we're also going to start using the life system. So the idea is, in all of the guided ones, pretty much you get hit, you're out. In the more open ones, though, to simulate longer fights, you have about 3 lives, essentially. So you'll get tagged, you'll walk back to your side of the field, touch a little indicator, then you can come back into the fray, and life will be great, grand, and wonderful. So these fights will take quite a while. They can be quite exhausting, but they're really, really fun, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of them. Okay, so now we come to the most complicated scenario out of all of them. This is the obstacle battle. So the idea here is that it's meant to be a multi-front fight, which is why I've brought out every single figure so far. So the way this works is that the field is divided into 2 halves. So I'll give you the top-down view. Everything toward the bottom of the screen is on one side of the wall, everything on the top, of course, being on the other. There's this channel here that is controlled by the archers. So the archer block will be right here. There's the not to scale 15-yard marker, and the archers will never fire over the wall. This is essentially a shooting range just for them. Meanwhile, on this side, we'll set up the door, we'll set up other barricades as we are able to do so, and the defending commander will get the option to kind of put men wherever they see fit. So for example, we've got like a little block set up here. We got some lances fighting behind. We got some guys guarding the door. Basically, this is supposed to be a pain to attack because to get all the way through there, you're going to have to go over a lot of different obstacles, and there's a lot of opportunities to get baited into trap, etc. Except the trick is, if you can dedicate men to make it across here and get to that 15-yard mark, the archers will cease fire for the rest of that scenario. They will retire, change out, and then rejoin as light infantry, which will mean that this whole zone is now not only open for you to use to attack, entirely circumnavigating the obstacles in the way, but also from the defender's perspective, they now have to start diverting resources that are not ranged to defend this place. So really, it's about who do you want to commit to go fight the archers, as they are more of an obstacle themselves? Or alternatively, do you want to just try and ignore them and put everyone toward the literal obstacles on the other side of the field? The defenders are not allowed to send troops this way. So really, this is just exactly the same as the first advancing under fire scenario in isolation, just with the caveat that there is a further fight beyond / going on next to you as well. Now, it may also end up that the archers eventually run out of ammunition. That is fully possible. So if that happens, they will also retire. Now, both sides will get the chance to do this, and this is also much less lance specific. So you may notice we brought out the light infantry blocks. We've got a couple lances standing independently, and then we've just got some guys posted where they seemed useful. This is the time to really shine as thinking on your feet, planning your attack, etc. And it should be just a very interesting engagement to see. So this will be our most complicated scenario. I'm really looking forward to it. I hope it goes swimmingly, and I'm really giddy about the idea of this. The next one will be just a little bit simpler. Okay, so once again, a scenario involving pretty much everyone. This is Capture the Noble, which the idea behind it is that someone who is designated as the noble, and we'll make them as distinct as possible, so that's the king right here, is cut off from their main force. So they will be on one side of the field. We'll have the obstacles up for, just a little bit of fun things to play around with, though it also works just fine in an open field. The king will have a small, or noble rather, will have a small bodyguard. Last time we literally had just 3 guys who were the most armored, plus the lightly armored king. And then this time I hope to have a bit more of a retinue going on, and we'll make sure they have a banner so they're nice and visible. You have the attacking force, whose sole job is to kill or capture the king. And they, however, must kind of fight on 2 fronts, because coming around the bend to rescue the king is going to be his army. So the idea essentially is the king has to get his way clear of everything here in the middle. Now, he can't just sprint around the whole thing. That's not very fair. So instead, for a while, it'll be very much the bodyguards are buying time for the king. And in regards to if the king gets isolated, to prevent him from literally just sprinting around, if the noble gets isolated at any point entirely alone, just takes 2 people next to him, we don't even have to hit him, he's done. So he does have to stay by his bodyguard. He's allowed to fight, of course, but no just sprinting around. Basically, you need to buy yourself time. This side is trying, of course, to hold off the encroaching army and destroy the noble. This side, meanwhile, is trying to break through, give some reinforcements to the noble, and escort him to the other side of the field. This is really where light infantry can make a huge difference, as while the king isn't allowed to just sprint for it, everyone else absolutely is. Light infantry is going to have the best time just running across this field to try and get some more help over to the noble, or alternatively to just start picking apart the side of this force so they can punch through quicker. Last year we did this as the Bad War scenario, where there were no larger pole arms, etc. involved, and it was pretty fun, if a bit overly chaotic. This year I want to do it properly, where we have the full range of weapons on the table, etc., and things along those lines. So it should be very exciting. It's a very interesting game. It's a very interesting dynamic, and very much a situation of speed. So, that having been said, the only other scenarios we might do is we may do a fight in the woods, if available. We may do a couple other pickup things like that. But for the most part, those are the main open and guided from the last video scenarios. So that's what we're going to be going over. Hopefully this visual representation makes things just a little more clear, gives people a better idea of the sort of situations that they will be in, and is starting to get those wheels turning and get you all very excited for coming and fighting this November. So otherwise, though, thank you very, very much for watching. I look forward to seeing you all down here when the weather is a little bit cooler, and we'll go over some other battle strategies another time.